The research vessel Celestial Seeker moved quietly through empty space. Its metal hull reflected distant starlight as it traveled through what once belonged to humans. Captain Q stood on the bridge, his gray skin tight against his breathing mask. The V'Kalera officer had been searching these abandoned systems for 3 months now, and each day felt longer than the last. "Nothing again today?" he asked, his four-fingered hand tapping against the control panel. Director Ral stood nearby, her tall, thin body almost touching the ceiling. Her 4 yellow eyes blinked one after another, a sign of interest among her kind. "The sensors show something unusual, Captain," she said. "Energy readings from the third moon. Faint, but definitely there." Science Officer Tesk looked up from his station. His mandibles clicked together in surprise. "That's not right. Nobody has lived in this system since the humans died out." Hugh moved closer to the main view screen. The third moon appeared small and gray, just another lifeless rock circling a forgotten planet. But the sensor data didn't lie. Something was producing energy down there. 200 years, muttered Q. "That's how long it's been since the great Terran extinction. What could still be working after all this time?" The official history was simple. Humans, a primitive species that had somehow managed to reach the stars, had destroyed themselves in a massive war. Their empty territories had been divided among the stronger species of the galaxy. The V'Kalera Confederation had claimed the largest portion, including Earth itself. "Should we report this to command?" asked Tesk. Q thought for a moment. His expedition was supposed to collect historical artifacts and information about the extinct humans. Command would want him to investigate this energy source. "Prepare the landing shuttle," he ordered. "Director Ral, choose 3 of your archaeology team to join us. We'll see what's down there." The shuttle cut through the thin atmosphere of the moon. Below them stretched a landscape of craters and dust. Nothing moved on the surface. Nothing had moved there for centuries. "The energy source is 5 kilometers ahead," said Tesk. "It appears to be underground." They landed near a small ridge of rock. At first, there seemed to be nothing special about the location. Then Ral noticed a straight line in the dust, too straight to be natural. "There," she pointed. "That's an artificial structure." The team approached carefully. What looked like a simple rock formation was actually a cleverly disguised entrance. The door slid open when Tesk examined it. "This shouldn't be functioning," he said, his voice tense with surprise. "After 2 centuries, all power systems should have failed." They entered a long tunnel leading deep into the moon. Their lights revealed metal walls and floor, surprisingly clean. There was no dust, no sign of abandonment. "Someone has been maintaining this facility," said Ral. "Recently." Captain Q felt uneasy. The official record stated clearly that all humans had died. Yet here was evidence that contradicted everything they had been taught. The tunnel opened into a large chamber filled with machinery. Ral examined the technology with growing confusion. "This is impossible," she said. "These systems are far more advanced than anything humans were supposed to have developed. According to our records, they were barely capable of interstellar travel when they destroyed themselves." Tesk moved from console to console, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "These are quantum communication arrays. Dimensional stabilizers. Technology the V'Kalera have only theorized about." "Could some other species have built this?" asked Q. Ral shook her head. "The writing on everything is in human language." This was their facility. The team moved deeper into the complex. They found living quarters, empty but clean. A food preparation area with supplies missing. Meeting rooms with star charts showing systems far beyond what humans should have explored. "The records must be wrong," whispered Ral. "Humans were more advanced than we thought." In the center of the facility, they found a large control room. Screens lined the walls, all dark and silent. A central console stood on a raised platform. "Should we try to activate it?" asked Tesk. Before Q could answer, lights suddenly flashed around them. The screens came to life, showing star maps, data streams, and images of locations across the galaxy. "We didn't touch anything," said Ral, backing away from the console. The system activated itself. A voice spoke from hidden speakers. The language was not familiar to any of them, but their translation devices quickly identified it. "Human language," said Tesk. "It's speaking in human language." The message repeated, growing more urgent with each repetition. On the main screen, coordinates appeared, followed by what looked like a distress code. "It's a distress signal," confirmed Tesk, "coming from a location at these coordinates." The message keeps repeating. "Breach detected. Sanctuary compromised. All available units respond." Q stared at the screen, his mind racing. This isn't just a recording. This is a current transmission. "That's not possible," argued Tesk. "Humans are extinct. They have been for 2 centuries. "Then who sent this message?" asked Rao. "Who maintained this facility? Who built technology that surpasses our own?" The implications were clear, but none of them wanted to say it aloud. If humans weren't extinct, if they had been hiding all this time, then everything the Confederation had taught about the past was a lie. "We need to report this to Command," said Tesk. Q looked at the coordinates on the screen. They pointed to a region of space considered empty, just another dead zone in former human territory. "No," he said finally. "If we report this, it will be buried. Command will send a military unit to destroy this place and any evidence of what we found." "What are you suggesting, Captain?" asked Ral, her 4 eyes focusing on him. "I'm suggesting we find out the truth. We follow these coordinates and see what's there." "That would be against orders," warned Tesk. Q nodded. "Yes, but I've spent my career studying a supposedly dead species. If they're actually alive, I want to know why we've been told they're extinct." The signal continued to repeat, echoing through the empty facility. A message from a species that shouldn't exist, calling for help that should never come. "If humans are out there," said Ral, "what will happen when they return to reclaim what was theirs?" Q had no answer. He only knew that everything was about to change. Commander Jolie stood by the large window on Sanctuary Station's top level. Below her, thousands of humans walked through busy streets. Children played in green parks. Workers built new homes. This was not a normal space station. It existed inside a pocket dimension, a special bubble of space hidden from the rest of the galaxy. 200 years ago, when alien forces attacked Earth and human colonies, the last survivors escaped here. They used experimental technology that even their enemies didn't understand. That desperate gamble had saved humanity. Jia watched a group of school children run past. They had never seen Earth. They knew it only from stories and pictures. To them, this hidden world was all they had ever known. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" asked a voice behind her. Jia turned to see Lieutenant Han, her most trusted officer. He was young but serious, always focused on duty. "Yes," she replied. "Sometimes I forget what we've built here. A whole society, hidden away." "The Council is waiting for you, Commander," Han said. "They seem worried." Jia nodded. "They should be." She walked with Han through the main habitat dome. People nodded respectfully as she passed. Everyone knew Commander Lee. She led the defense forces that protected their hidden world. The council chamber sat at the center of Sanctuary Station. 5 leaders waited around a round table. They turned as Jia entered. "Commander Lee," said Counselor Bora, the oldest member. His white hair and lined face showed his age, but his eyes remained sharp. "Thank you for coming quickly." "What's happened?" Jia asked, taking her seat. Bora touched a control panel. The 3-dimensional map appeared above the table, showing their pocket dimension and the normal space around it. "Our stealth satellites have detected increased alien activity near our dimensional anchors," Bora explained. "These anchors connect our pocket dimension to normal space. If the aliens find them, they could find us." "Which species?" asked Jia. "Calera ships mostly," answered Defense Chief Sun. He was a large man with a permanent frown. They're claiming to be on archaeological missions, studying extinct human ruins. Councillor Te, barely 30 years old, and the youngest council member ever appointed, leaned forward. After 200 years of hiding, perhaps it's time we showed ourselves. The other council members looked at him with surprise. Are you suggesting we reveal our existence? Asked Councillor Min, her voice sharp. After all we've done to stay hidden. We can't hide forever, Tai insisted. Our population grows. Our resources are limited. Sooner or later, we'll need to reclaim what was ours. Jia listened carefully. This debate wasn't new. Every generation, someone suggested returning to normal space, but fear always kept them hidden. Commander Lee, said Bora, your intelligence report, please. Jia stood and activated her datapad. New images replaced the map above the table. My team has been analyzing communications from Clara and other alien confederations, she said. We've discovered something important. The alien confederacies have been suppressing our technology. The FTL designs they're using are inferior copies of our original work. She showed schematics of engine designs clearly based on human technology, but modified to be less efficient. They've stolen our achievements while telling the galaxy we destroyed ourselves, she continued. They're using our technology, but pretending they invented it. Defense Chief Sun slammed his fist on the table. They've been plundering our achievements while pretending we destroyed ourselves. This is worse than we thought. There's more, said Jia. I've prepared a reconnaissance mission. We need to assess exactly what we're facing before we decide whether to reveal ourselves. A mission outside? Asked Min. That's too dangerous. If they track you back to the anchors, we'll use the Phantom, Jia explained. Our newest stealth ship. It can slip through the dimensional barrier without detection. The council debated for nearly an hour. Finally, Bora called for a vote. 4 in favor, 1 against, he announced. The mission is approved. Commander Lee, when can you leave? Tomorrow, Jia replied. I'll pilot the Phantom myself. The next day, Jia sat in the pilot seat of the small stealth ship. The Phantom was designed to be invisible to all known sensor types. Its hull could bend light around it. Its engines left no energy trail. Lieutenant Han sat beside her as co-pilot. Are you sure about this, Commander? I could lead the mission instead. I need to see it with my own eyes, Jia replied. 2 centuries is a long time to be gone. The Phantom slipped through the dimensional barrier like a fish through water. One moment they were in the safe bubble of sanctuary, the next in normal space. Jia felt her heart beat faster. She was now the first human to enter normal space in nearly 200 years. They visited 5 former human worlds over the next week. What they found shocked them deeply. At each location, the story was the same. Human colonies had been systematically stripped of resources. Alien settlements now stood on the ruins of human cities. Historical markers told lies about how humans had destroyed themselves in a great war. Look at this, Han said as they orbited what had once been New Beijing, humanity's largest colony. They've built their cities using our foundation designs. They're literally building on top of our ruins. Jia stared at the data. Checked the historical beacon. The beacon broadcast information to passing ships. It claimed humans had bombed their own city during a civil war. But Jia's grandparents had told her the truth. New Beijing had fallen to Cholera forces after a 6-month siege. The Phantom moved silently through former human space. They recorded everything. Alien mining operations stripping resources from human worlds, military bases built on strategic locations humans had chosen, and most disturbing, educational broadcasts, teaching alien children that humans had been primitive and self-destructive. Their final stop was Earth itself. From high orbit, Jia looked down at the blue planet where humanity began. Alien cities covered much of the surface now. Cholera flags flew where human nations had once stood. They didn't just take our space, Jia whispered, her hands tight on the controls. They're erasing our very existence. Han looked at her, seeing the anger in her eyes. "What will you tell the council?" Jia turned away from Earth's image. "The truth. That we've been hiding long enough." She set course back to the dimensional anchor. "It's time to take back what's ours." The Great Hall on Calera Prime buzzed with activity. Leaders from 27 alien species had gathered for the annual Galactic Summit. Tall Calerans with their 4 eyes moved among the shorter Tolari and the floating Navari. They discussed trade routes, resource rights, and border disputes. High Commissioner Zell of the Calera Confederation stood on the main stage. His ceremonial robes glittered with metals taken from former human worlds. "For 2 centuries, our great confederations have maintained peace," Zell said to the gathered leaders. "Since the primitive humans destroyed themselves, we have." A loud alarm cut off his words. Red lights flashed across the hall. Security officers rushed to protect the important guests. "What is happening?" demanded Zell. A Caleran officer ran to the stage. "Something big has just appeared in orbit, sir. A ship, larger than any we have on record." Above the planet, the massive human dreadnought Resurrection had appeared seemingly from nowhere. It was 5 times larger than the biggest Caleran warship. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflected it. Inside the ship, Commander Jali sat in the command chair. After 2 weeks of preparation following her reconnaissance mission, the Council had approved her bold plan. Now, humanity would reveal itself to the galaxy. "Open all communication channels," Jia ordered. "Make sure every ship, station, and ground facility can hear us." Lieutenant Han worked at his console. "Ready, Commander." Jia took a deep breath. "This is Commander Jia Li of the Human Cooperative. We have returned to reclaim what is rightfully ours." On Calera Prime, the diplomatic chambers erupted in chaos. Many delegates ran for safety. Others stood frozen in shock. The word human caused more fear than any battle alert could have. High Commissioner Zell raised his hands for quiet. "This is clearly a trick. Some species is using human imagery to frighten us." He activated the communication system. "This is High Commissioner Zell of the Calera Confederation. Identify yourself truthfully. Humans are extinct. This is clearly an elaborate hoax." On the view screen, Jali's face appeared. The sight of a human, a species not seen in the galaxy for 200 years, caused gasps throughout the hall. "We've been watching from the shadows," Jia responded. "We escaped your attempted genocide by creating technology you couldn't understand, and we've watched as you built your confederations on the ruins of our worlds." She transmitted data packets to the summit. "These are the historical records of what really happened. Not your manufactured history of human self-destruction, but the truth. Your attacks on our colonies, your systematic destruction of our civilization." Ambassador Maz of the Tolari Republic examined the data on his pad. The small, blue-skinned diplomat's eyes widened. "These records appear genuine," he said quietly. "They match inconsistencies our historians have noted in the official account." "Lies," shouted Zell. "This ship, wherever it came from, will be destroyed if it does not leave our space immediately." Jia's face showed no fear. "We will give you 24 hours to begin discussions about returning human territories. After that, we will take action." The screen went dark. In the Great Hall, arguments broke out between the different species. Some believed the human message. Others sided with the Calera. "Deploy the defense fleet," Zell ordered his military commander. "Surround that ship." The next day, after no meaningful diplomatic contact had been established, Jia implemented Phase 2 of her plan. While the Caleran fleet focused on the Resurrection in orbit around their homeworld, the real attack happened elsewhere. Near Jupiter in the Sol system, 3 human battle cruisers emerged from dimensional space. Their target, Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Once a major human research station, it now housed a Caleran mining operation that extracted water for fuel. Captain Da led the attack force. All ships engage dimensional shields. Target only military structures. We want to take this station intact. The Kaleran defenders were caught completely by surprise. Their weapons barely damaged the human ships, whose dimensional shields caused the energy beams to pass partially into another dimension. Meanwhile, human weapons had been designed specifically to counter Kaleran defenses. They had spent decades studying the enemy who thought them extinct. Within 3 hours, the last Kaleran defender surrendered. Europa was back under human control for the first time in 2 centuries. News of the Europa takeover reached the Galactic Summit during an emergency session. High Commissioner Zell smashed his fist on the table. "This act of war will not stand," he shouted. "I call on all confederations to join in crushing this threat." But not all species were eager to follow the Kalera into war. Ambassador Maz stood up. "The humans display remarkable tactical adaptability," noted Maz. "Perhaps we should consider an alliance rather than conflict. If these are truly humans returned from hiding, they have legitimate grievances." Ambassador Tal of the Navari agreed. "Our histories show that humans were inventive and resourceful trading partners before their supposed extinction. The Kalera have not been such good partners to the smaller confederations." The galactic community began to divide. The Toleri and Navari, smaller species who had often felt bullied by the Kalera, expressed support for human claims. The Kalera and their close allies prepared for war. On Europa, Commander Jali arrived to inspect the recaptured station. Walking through corridors once built by human hands, she felt a deep sense of rightness. This was just the beginning. She entered the main control room where Captain Dai had gathered the troops. The soldiers stood straighter as she entered. Many had trained their entire lives for this moment. "The Kalera are gathering their fleet," she told them. "They have called for allies to help fight us, but they don't understand what they're facing. While they stole and copied our old technology, we continue to advance in hiding." She activated a display showing the Sol system, humanity's home system. "Today is just the beginning," Gia said, her voice carrying to every soldier. "We've taken back one outpost. Now we reclaim our legacy. Earth itself is next." The soldiers cheered. After generations of hiding, after being told stories of the homeworld they had never seen, they would finally return to the planet where humanity began. Gia looked out a viewport at Jupiter looming large in the sky. Soon, the view would be Earth's blue oceans and green continents. Soon, humans would walk their homeworld again. The war to reclaim human space had begun. Admiral Dorn stood on the bridge of his massive warship. Through the large front window, he could see the small moon called Europa. The humans had taken it from the Kalera 3 days ago. Now he would take it back. "All ships in position," Admiral reported, his second-in-command. Dorn nodded with satisfaction. He had brought 5 dreadnoughts, the largest and most powerful ships in the Kaleran fleet. The humans only had 3 smaller vessels defending the moon. The battle would be quick. "Open communication with the human ships," Dorn ordered. On the main screen, Commander Jali's face appeared. She looked calm, which annoyed Dorn. She should be afraid. "Human Commander," Dorn said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence to show his authority. "You are surrounded by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Your 3 ships cannot stand against our 5 dreadnoughts. Surrender now. You cannot hope to survive." To his surprise, Gia smiled. "Admiral Dorn, I presume. I studied your battle tactics. Very traditional, very predictable." Dorn felt anger rise in his chest. "You have 10 minutes to surrender, or we open fire." "We won't need 10 minutes," Gia replied. Then she turned to someone off-screen. "Defense Protocol Omega." The communication ended. Dorn turned to his weapons officer. "Target their ships. Prepare to fire." "Sir," called the sensor operator. "The human ships, they're gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Dorn demanded, moving to the sensor station. "They were there, and then they just disappeared. No warp signature, no engine flare." Dorn stared at the empty sensor readings. This was impossible. Ships couldn't just vanish. "Check for sensor malfunction," he ordered. They must be using some kind of stealth. Alarms blared across the bridge. The ship shook violently. "We're under attack," shouted the defense officer. From behind. On the tactical display, Dorn saw the impossible. The 3 human ships had somehow appeared behind his fleet. They were firing precisely at engine systems, weapons arrays, and shield generators. "How?" Dorn gasped. "How did they get behind us?" His flagship trembled again as another hit landed. Systems began shutting down across the ship. "Main power failing," reported an officer. "Weapons offline. Shields at 20%. Return fire," Dorn ordered. "We can't target them." "Sir, they keep shifting. One moment they're there, the next, they're somewhere else." Through the view screen, Dorn watched in horror as one of his dreadnoughts lost power completely, drifting helplessly. Another was spinning, its steering systems clearly damaged. "Impossible," Dorn whispered as his own flagship systems failed one by one. The lights dimmed. Emergency power activated, bathing the bridge in red light. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the human commander." Jia's face appeared on the screen again. "Admiral Dorn, your fleet is disabled. We could destroy you, but that's not our goal. We want you to deliver a message to your leaders. Humanity is back, and we will reclaim what is ours. You have 1 hour to retreat from this system before we take more aggressive action." The screen went dark. Dorn stood in stunned silence. 5 dreadnoughts defeated by 3 human ships, without a single vessel destroyed on either side. It was humiliating. "Orders, Admiral," asked his second-in-command. Dorn closed his eyes briefly. "Signal the fleet. Divert all remaining power to engines. We're withdrawing." Far away, on the neutral world of Galaxia, where the Galactic Assembly met, Counselor Yun stood before representatives from 30 different species. The human diplomat was the first of his kind to address the Assembly in 2 centuries. "For too long, the galaxy has believed a lie," Yun said, his voice firm but calm. "The official history claims humans destroyed themselves in a great war. Today, I present evidence that tells the true story." He activated the large display behind him. It showed historical records, ship logs, and communication transcripts from 200 years ago. These records show how the Calera Confederation launched a secretive campaign against human colonies uncontinued. They attacked our supply ships. They sabotaged our terraforming equipment. They poisoned relations between human factions. They were weakening us systematically until a manufactured crisis could be blamed for our extinction. The assembly chamber filled with murmurs. The Kalaran representative, Sub-Commissioner Vex, jumped to his feet. "These are forgeries," he shouted. "Humans destroyed themselves through their own violence." Yun remained calm. "We didn't destroy ourselves. We were systematically eliminated so our territories could be seized. While the Calera told the galaxy we were gone, they claimed our worlds and took our technology." He showed more evidence. Calaran ships using engine designs clearly copied from human originals. Mining operations on former human worlds using human extraction methods. Even Calaran buildings constructed on top of human foundations. "The humans are simply trying to justify their unprovoked attacks on our peaceful mining operations," Vex insisted. Ambassador Maz of the Tolari Republic stood. The small blue-skinned diplomat looked directly at Yun, ignoring the Calaran protests. "The Tolari Republic has reviewed the evidence presented by the humans," Maz announced. "We find it credible. Therefore, the Tolari Republic officially recognizes humanity's right to reclaim their ancestral worlds. We offer our full support." This declaration caused an uproar. The Calaran delegation stormed out. Other species broke into heated discussions. The Neveri, longtime trading partners with the Tolari, quickly added their support for the humans. The Xanthi and Prex confederations sided with the Calera. Just like that, the galaxy was dividing into 2 camps. Over the next 2 weeks, battles erupted across former human space. The Calera deployed their largest fleets to hold key systems. but they faced an enemy unlike any they had fought before. Commander Ji's fleet employed tactics that made no sense to conventional military doctrine. Human ships would appear in a system, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before counterattacks could land. They seemed to ignore the normal rules of space travel. At the main Killeran Military Academy, Admiral Dorn had been assigned to develop counter-strategies after his defeat at Europa. He stood before a room of senior officers, all looking to him for answers. "The humans are using technology we don't understand," Dorn explained, showing recordings of the Europa battle. "Their ships can shift into another dimension and reappear somewhere else instantly. They don't use jump points or warp lanes. They simply disappear and reappear." "How do we fight an enemy that can simply disappear?" asked one of the generals. Dorn had no good answer. "We're working on detection systems that might give us some warning before they shift. But until then, we must concentrate our forces at our most important worlds." In her command ship near Earth, Commander Jia reviewed the latest battle reports. Human forces had reclaimed 7 former colonies. The Toleri and Neveri support had given them access to supply bases and intelligence. Lieutenant Han entered with a datapad. "New orders from the Council, Commander. They're authorizing the final phase." Jia nodded slowly. "Earth." "Yes," confirmed Han. "It's time to go home." The blue planet Earth hung in space, surrounded by hundreds of ships. For 200 years, humans had only seen their homeworld in pictures. Now they had come to take it back. From her command chair on the flagship Terra's Hope, Commander Jia Li studied the enemy forces. The Killeran defense fleet had formed a tight barrier around Earth. Their ships were arranged in layers, like a wall with no gaps. Behind them, ships from their remaining allies waited as backup. It was the largest battle group anyone had seen in many generations. "They'd committed everything to this defense," said Lieutenant Han, standing beside her. "Almost 1,000 ships." Jia nodded. The human fleet was much smaller, just 150 vessels. But they had something the Killera didn't understand: dimensional shifting technology. "All human ships report ready, Commander," Han informed her. "The Toleri and Neveri support fleets are standing by at the jump point." Jia activated the communication system. Her face appeared on screens throughout every human ship. Thousands of men and women waited for her words. "Today we fight not just for our past, but for our future," she said, her voice clear and strong. "For 2 centuries, we've lived in hiding while others claimed our worlds. Earth is more than just a planet. It's our birthright. The place where our species began. Today, we take it back." Cheers erupted across the fleet. Jia turned to her bridge crew. "Dimensional jump in 30 seconds, she ordered. "Target coordinates locked." The plan was bold but simple. Instead of attacking the wall of ships from outside, they would jump directly into the middle of the enemy formation. The Killera had arranged their ships to defend against an attack from outside, not from within their own lines. "Jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Space twisted around the human fleet. For a brief moment, they existed in the pocket dimension that had been their home for 2 centuries. Then they reappeared, directly among the surprised Killeran ships. Chaos erupted immediately. The Killeran vessels, packed tightly together for defense, now found enemies all around them. Some fired and hit their own allies by mistake. Others tried to maneuver away but collided with nearby ships. "Phase shifting engage," ordered Jia. Human ships began to blink in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit. They would appear, fire precisely out of Killeran vessels' engines or weapons, then shift partially into another dimension before the enemy could return fire. On the Killeran command ship, Admiral Dorn watched in horror as his perfect defense fell apart. "They're everywhere," shouted his weapons officer. "We can't target them. They keep shifting." Dorn had expected the humans to use their dimensional jumps to arrive near Earth. He hadn't expected them to appear directly inside his formation. Now his carefully arranged fleet was in disarray. Forward section has collapsed, reported his tactical officer. Enemy ships are pushing toward the planet. Dorn stared at the tactical display. The Terra's Hope, easily identified as the human flagship, was leading a group of ships directly toward Earth. They were breaking through. "Prepare the singularity projector," Dorn ordered grimly. His second-in-command looked shocked. "Sir, that weapon is still experimental. Using it this close to Earth cold." "Do it," Dorn shouted. "I will not lose this planet to them." Aboard the Terra's Hope, Gia felt her ship shake as enemy fire finally found its mark. "Shields at 60%, reported the defense officer. "We've broken through their outer lines." Through the view screen, Gia could see Earth growing larger. Blue oceans, white clouds, the homeworld she had only seen in historical records. Tears formed in her eyes, but she blinked them away. There would be time for emotion later. "Commander," called the sensor officer urgently. "The Killeran flagship is powering up some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the charts." Lieutenant Han studied his console. "It's a gravitational singularity projector. They're creating a small black hole." "A black hole?" Here, Jia was stunned. "That could destroy Earth as well as our fleet." "They must be desperate," Han said. A bright point of light appeared near the Killeran flagship. It quickly darkened into a small sphere of absolute blackness. Ships near it, both human and Killeran, began to be pulled toward it. "It's growing too quickly," warned Han. "They can't control it." Gia made a quick decision. Dimensional anchors at maximum. Direct all power to the dimensional field. The Terra's Hope moved toward the growing singularity. The ship shook violently as the black hole's gravity pulled at it. "What are we doing?" asked a bridge officer. "Our dimensional technology creates stable connections between normal space and pocket dimensions," Gia explained quickly. "If we can extend our field around that singularity, we might be able to collapse it back on itself." The ship groaned as it fought against the pull of the singularity. Lights dimmed across the bridge as power was diverted to the dimensional systems. "Systems failing," reported Han. "Hull integrity at 40% and dropping." "Hold on," Jia ordered, gripping her chair as the ship shuddered. "Just a few more seconds." The dimensional field from the Terra's Hope reached the singularity, surrounding it with shimmering energy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the black sphere began to shrink. Smaller and smaller it became, until with a flash of light, it collapsed completely. Silence fell across the bridge. Then the tactical officer looked up from his console. "The Killeran flagship is hailing us," he said, sounding surprised. "Admiral Dorn is requesting to speak with you." Dorn's face appeared on the screen. His gray skin looked pale. All four of his eyes focused on Jia. "You could have let the singularity destroy us all," he said quietly. "Why did you stop it?" "Because we didn't come to destroy," Jia replied. "We came to reclaim what's ours." Dorn was silent for a long moment. "The Killeran defense fleet surrenders," he said finally. "Earth is yours." 3 weeks later, Jia stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council. Representatives from all major species watched as she took the speaker's position. "Humanity doesn't seek vengeance," she declared. "We seek recognition and restoration. Our worlds will be returned, and a new accord will ensure such betrayals never happen again." The Galactic Restoration Accord was signed on Earth's surface in a ceremony attended by leaders from across the galaxy. It was the first interspecies treaty to be ratified on Earth in centuries. Later that evening, Jia walked through newly planted gardens in what had once been Seoul. The sun was setting behind mountains that her ancestors had gazed upon for thousands of years. Lieutenant Han, now promoted to admiral, walked beside her. "It's beautiful," he said, looking at the sunset. "Yes," agreed Jia. "And it's ours again." They watched as lights began to appear in the new human city being built nearby. "We didn't just take back our space," Jia said softly. "We created a better one. One where we won't hide our achievements, but share them with peaceful allies." Across the galaxy, long-suppressed human innovations were being rediscovered and celebrated. The pocket dimension technology was already being adapted for peaceful uses, instant transportation, new types of energy production, and exploration of previously unreachable regions of space. The species once thought extinct had not only survived, they had returned to lead the galaxy into a new age of discovery and cooperation. The end.